Brought to you by Penguin.
The Achilles Trap by Steve Coll. Read by Malcolm Hillgartner.
For Eliza. Introduction. In October 2003, 7 months after the American-led invasion of Iraq, I traveled to Baghdad on assignment for the Washington Post. Saddam Hussein was by then a fugitive in hiding. Occasional car bombs rattled the capital, a prelude of much worse to come. One afternoon at a fortified compound near the Republican Palace, I met Hamish Killip, a British investigator with the Iraq Survey Group, a CIA-sponsored multinational task force dispatched at the onset of the invasion to find Saddam's hidden stocks of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. By now it was apparent that Iraq possessed no such weapons. The shock of this revelation had already touched off investigations into the profound failures of U.S. intelligence and White House decision-making. In Iraq, the survey group's mission had unexpectedly changed from hunting for weapons to sorting truth from lies in the history of the Saddam Hussein regime. One set of questions involved Saddam's motivations. Why had he seemingly sacrificed his long reign in power by giving the impression that he had dangerous weapons, when in fact he had none? Or as Killip put it that afternoon, addressing Saddam, what was so damned important that you were willing to go through all of this? Across town I met David Kay, the survey group's leader. He was exploring a theory that Saddam had been bluffing, pretending that he might have WMD in order to deter the radical ayatollahs of Iran from attacking Iraq. And yet the matter seemed uncertain, Kay told me, since Saddam did not appear to have been particularly afraid of Iran. When one of his ministers had worried aloud that Iran might pursue its own nuclear or chemical arsenal, Saddam had reportedly replied, "Don't worry about the Iranians. If they ever get WMD, the Americans and the Israelis will destroy them." This was vintage Saddam, I now recognize. Half-joking, capable of striking prescience, reliably fixated on American and Israeli power, and, above all, impossible to reduce to a simple explanation. Successive American presidents misjudged him. They often dismissed him as a cartoon autocrat, akin to the faux Adolf Hitler played for laughs by Charlie Chaplin in The Great Dictator. Certainly, Saddam Hussein was as unsubtle as a shotgun blast. He was a cruel tyrant, directly responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, as well as for the torture or imprisonment of many tens of thousands more. Without serious provocation, he invaded 2 of his neighbors, Iran and Kuwait. During the Iran-Iraq War, he gassed Iranian troops and his own rebellious Kurdish population. During the Gulf War, he lobbed terrifying Scud missiles at Saudi Arabia and Israel. He plastered Iraq with his image to promote his cult of personality. His speeches were often bombastic and alarming. Against such a record, it seems more than a little odd to argue that Saddam's enemies failed to grasp important nuances of the man and his rule through the Ba'ath Party. Yet as America's tragic invasion to eliminate a non-existent WMD arsenal amply demonstrated, there was more to Saddam than Washington's politicians and spies could grasp, even when the stakes were very high. The Achilles Trap is an investigation into how this failure of comprehension unfolded. It seeks to enlarge the story of the 2003 invasion's origins by elevating Saddam's side of the conflict and by adding substantial new information. Saddam left an extraordinary and still mostly secret trove of about 2,000 hours of tape recordings of his leadership meetings. Private discussions he recorded as assiduously as Richard Nixon, as well as meeting minutes, intelligence files, and other materials. They document what the Iraqi leader was saying privately at turning points of his struggle against the United States. The Saddam tapes have a complicated, problematic...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?